Hello, this is Nathan, better known as CrazyhermitDM, and this is my podcast, The Hermit Homebrew. Joining me today is Brent from Lang Mini Studios, and Chase, better known as Kilk, as we talk about Dungeons & Dragons and tabletop gaming. As a game master, I try and roll specific, just because I'm obviously an attention deficit overthinker as well. I try and put certain situations in my head, and when we're talking about this, I was looking at all the list of the things that we could go over, and one of the ones was how, if, let's say, alternative universe with this particular campaign, and it was Rama, how could I have made Rama think she was doing what Damandral wanted, but in fact, and let's say he wasn't the god of law, or he was like the evil god of law, she was doing the exact opposite, but he was still leading her that exact opposite way to make her be a sacrifice for something.
Oh.
Or for a betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it depends on how good you wanted him to be, right?
I think Shar does that in the Baldur's Gate 3. You lead Shadowheart to these trials, and she's basically going to, you're truly devout, and you're going to do this and this and that. And I think it ends up, if you go this way,
Oh, it's in front of that statue, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it Shadowheart's gonna have to kill herself in order to do this? Or I can't even remember.
I'm sorry, I didn't do the bad arc.
Yeah. Or
was it her parents?
I can't even remember.
I don't remember because I did the good arc. Sorry.
We'll even go Forgotten Realms with that. Let's say it's Shar, and we'll go a little bit Baldur's Gate with it. And you're playing a Shadowheart type character where you're being led down this way, and you think she's a great god, even though you know she's the god of evil shadows and darkness, and you're coming out that you're being this devout thing you're this devout cleric that's being led this way, and you're going to be great and powerful, and they're just fattening you up for the sacrifice.
Well, that could be the thing is the cleric or the deity or the entity in question does say, look, I know your deepest desires. I know what you want. Help me follow my laws, be my cleric, and I can help you with that. And so then start giving them that. And then at the end, have it be you will get whatever their heart's desires. I want my country to be strong, or I want my family to be prosperous, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. I can make that happen. All it takes is a sacrifice. You have to willingly kill yourself on my altar. And if you do that, your family for the next 7 generations will be nobility. They'll want for nothing.
Even in our real world, the primal mythology, the primal pantheons, the Babylonians, the Sumerian blood sacrifice was the ultimate.
Oh yeah, and the Mayans, the Aztecs, one of those two.
Yeah,
or was it both?
I think both.
Both, okay.
I think they both did sacrifices
for
seasonal.
Yeah, and it was for good harvest and stuff like that. So yeah, it's I can save this kingdom. This kingdom is on the brink of collapse because they haven't had a good rainstorm in 7 years. They need water or their crops are going to die. I can do that. You have to publicly kill yourself in my name.
You could play the flip side of that too. And what do you think, Chase, of a character arc of you are basically the lamb to the sacrifice. You're being fattened. And that is your destiny, is I'm making myself more powerful. I'm making myself this. That way I am a greater sacrifice for this deal. And then it's maybe the arc is the group is trying to talk this character out of that.
It's hard, right? It's hard to think that way because there's a few different ways to go about it. That's basically the character arc of Sasuke from Naruto. Sasuke was being groomed by Orochimaru to be his next
vessel.
Right? and he knew about it, and he still willingly went because he wanted to get stronger. Right? Orochimaru didn't want Sasuke as a child. He wanted Sasuke after he like manifested everything. Sasuke knew all of this, so he's like, yeah, but I'm going to go and I'm going to use this person to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And as long as I end up accomplishing the goal that I had, it doesn't matter what happens to me after that point. That was his original outlook, because his whole thing was to kill his brother. So you can go down that road. Otherwise, you would have to be like wildly devout to that, right? Or you're a dwarf slayer.
Oh, yeah, he doesn't care anymore.
Where you're oath bound to kill yourself in battle.
Yeah.
But you're not allowed to commit suicide.
But you're
right?
still,
so it has to be done.
But you're still getting something. But a slayer's still getting something. They're getting their honor back, and like their stain isn't like a burden on their family anymore. So they believe that even though in death, they are getting that redemption and that forgiveness.
Right.
So
that would be good.
Someone has to have
that dying leads to a much greater thing. Yeah.
We're running a Nordic setting. The Vikings, before a great battle or before a great voyage, even would do blood sacrifices. They'd do the eagle thing to people.
Wasn't that an execution though?
They also had blood eagle. That's right. In like the Vikings TV series, they had a willing person do it for a blessing from Odin or another god I cannot remember on this great voyage that they're getting ready to go do to England.
Oh, okay. If I was a god and I saw that, I'd be like, whatever you want, I will give it to you. Just never do that again. Because holy cow. That's messed up, guys.
Yeah, I didn't know about blood eagles till the Hannibal TV series when they had a serial killer doing that to people, and then I started.
Oh yeah, it's that's a dark rabbit hole to go down. Yeah,
and then you find out what it is, and I'm just like, whoa, we as people did that to each other. Wow.
Yeah, and it was like a great pride to like how long they stayed alive through it. Which, no, thank you. Jeez, just.
And
just
it was invented by, I don't know if it was invented. I might be speaking out of turn, but I think it was pretty much primarily a Viking thing.
Yeah, I believe it was invented by the Vikings. Yeah,
which is.
And you're wanting to add the great horned rat.
Using him as inspiration. I'm not saying a direct one-to-one copy.
That would, Josh, if you actually listen to our podcast, fast forward a couple minutes here.
Skip a few pages, brother.
Skip a few pages just because I got a plot point that might give Brent inspiration. What happens if this rat god or patron of his is fattening him up for a sacrifice?
What do you mean?
Bring the great horned rat into the real world.
Whatever goal you give this patron or whatever. What happens if he's just, here's the deal. But then the thing that the patron holds back is from Josh's character. It's like, I want you to become more powerful because the more powerful you are, when I finally sacrifice you to whatever my blood magic or whatever my goal is, it's a greater chance of this succeeding. So this episode's been brought to you by. In the age of sagas and songs, don't let your next TTRPG be left to the Norns alone. Let the fate of your character be carved in runes and cast in metal, liquid core, or prismatic glass. Let the players of your table wield dice worthy of Odin, Thor, Loki, and yes, Heimdall. Heimdall dice worthy of guarding the Bifrost with. Claim the glory of Valhalla with HeimdallDice.com. Heimdall Dice, the official Nordic dice of the Hermit's Homebrew podcast.
Well, that is in his. Well, let me back up just a couple of seconds. In my campaign, I will not be doing epic destinies like you have done. Each player is going to get an artifact of legacy. I've already talked to Josh about what his artifact of legacy does. I don't know what it is yet because I don't know if he's settled on his pact.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's going to be like a Pact of the Tome, Pact of the Chain, Pact of the Blade. I don't know what that's going to be. So I'm going to wait on that, but I know what it does. The first thing that it does is that he can sacrifice hit points to upcast spells. And it's like,
I think Blood Hunter or Critical Role's Blood
yeah,
Hunter.
kind of like that. Yeah, it will to where he can sacrifice hit points to upcast spells. So that could be a thing that if it does end up killing him, maybe he gets like disadvantage on resurrection because the Great Horned Rat wants his soul. It's like, no, you use this ability, you're mine now. And then later on, he'll be able to like, because I forget what the 3 abilities I had in mind were, but one of them, I think the last one, is that he can make a Constitution save to have that damage. To where if you rolled, 20, okay, it's now 10 instead, type of a thing. And I kind of did that because I wanted a warlock to have the ability to cast above level 5 without their Mystic Arcanum. To where they can say, I have this spell that, for every spell level above this, it does more damage. I want them to be able to be like, I want to cast this at level 9. That's 4 levels above what it should be able to cast at. So he's going to get really hurt trying to do that. I want him to run that risk of, yeah, I can be super powerful, but there is that backlash.
The TV series, despite how it was executed in the TV series, the concept was absolutely amazing. And there's a TV series on HBO called True Blood. One of the vampires in that drinks the blood of the original, in quotations, vampire that's dead, but then he dies at the end of the season. And then in True Blood, when a vampire dies, they just basically go into a giant blood puddle and then die.
Yeah.
And that's because he drank that original blood and then died. It just like out of the blood came back up into his form and then was possessed by that god. That is such an awesome concept. It's just like you guys just did not follow through. I feel that's honestly many TV series of like, this is such a great setup. You did not execute the following story arc of what, my mind thought this could go, or even succeed or exceed that. But
I don't know, Chase. Maybe that's, going with the idea that Nate just brought up. Maybe that's how a Vermin Lord gets created in this setting. Is to where Vermin Lords are like the most powerful Skaven or whatever, and they're like the greatest followers of the Great Horned Rat. Maybe if Josh's character dies, he gets resurrected, but possessed by a shard of the Great Horned Rat and becomes a Vermin Lord. And he loses control of it. And like, okay, cool. Roll up a new character, but now there's a Vermin Lord running around.
I mean, it could...
Yeah, you could also say that if the damage takes him below his health total... he can't be resurrected by normal means, right? Because his soul or whatever, his body, something is now owned by the Great Horned Rat. That way he can't just knock himself out. Otherwise, there's a big consequence to using like your final hit points to upcast these spells. It also offers some fun thematic stuff if the character wants to go out in like a blaze of glory or just different options lore-wise. There's a lot of options there.
There is. If we're sticking, which I kind of hope he does, like you stick with the Critical Role resurrection thing. If his like story starts out of like, I sacrificed myself to my patron and then he brought me back and I'm his warlock now. Okay, you've already cooked it into your backstory of like, well, in our resurrection rules, you have to roll 10. You've already died once and come back, so now you need an 8 or a 9 to...
Sure.
Or I could give him, I just thought of an idea of having like an artistic like outline of one of the Skaven runes from Warhammer. And every time he dies, that rune fills up a little bit. And, like true death, like needing a resurrection, that rune fills up. And if the rune is full, sorry, there is no coming back from this. You are dead. And the Great Horned Rat now takes your body.
Or... like, if you fill up the rune and, you don't get to come back, what happens with now that the rune's filled up?
What happens now?
Is it the end of Blade, the original Blade movie, where they fill up those ruins and then
I forgot about Blade, yeah. I gotta do some more research.
the Skaven are usually trying to please the Great Horned Rat in some way.
Even though the Great Horned Rat actively hates them.
So that he bestows gifts to them. But he also grants them power and all this other stuff. So, like, it's an interesting concept because they hope that when they die, that their souls are being taken by the Great Horned Rat. Right? That's what they're hoping for. They don't... In the Warhammer world, if you are a follower of a deity, you want your soul to go to that deity when it's over with. Because if your soul goes to Khorne, or someone else that you didn't, or Nurgle, or anyone else that you didn't want it to go to, it's probably getting tortured.
Yeah, it becomes a POW, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so you want your soul, right? You want to die so that your deity can somehow absorb this power, and then you become part of them. That's kind of like the whole way that it works. That's how Chaos gets all their power, right? Because of the heinous acts of mortals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's a very interesting concept because it instills that, yes, the gods are there and everybody knows that they exist.
Yeah.
But you really don't want Khorne getting a hold of that soul. Like,
yeah. And, yeah, exactly. Or like, if you're an Eldar, you definitely don't want Slaanesh to get that soul.
Right. Yeah. Like, it's not gonna go well.
No, and because I'm thinking that, like, working title, the Great Horned Rat, his idea is that he wants to dethrone Nidhogg. He wants to take Nidhogg's place in the cosmology.
To start infesting the world tree?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I like it.
So
that's cool.
That's kind of like his, like, he knows he's nowhere near powerful enough to fight the mighty Nidhogg, but with enough warlocks and with enough power and with enough whatever, he eventually could. And then that's his long game, is to dethrone Nidhogg. He's
creating his own soul bomb, but inside himself.
Inside himself, exactly.
And if we are basing that after Ratatosk, like, that fits, just because Ratatosker just basically goes and stirs up shit with Nidhogg and then goes back up.
Yeah, exactly. And so
if they're still part of that family,
that's right. Just talk shit to him.
Yeah, it's like, hey, my kid says this. You're what? How dare you let your bloodline do this? I'm sorry, he beat Nidhogg. I mean, what do you want me to do about it? He called you a bitch.
I could see almost like Ratatosk, if he isn't talking shit, almost being like the I don't know if you guys have ever seen What We Do in the Shadows of Colin Robinson. Just he's an energy vampire that feeds basically off bad energy.
Yeah.
And he'll do a drone-on story that has no end in sight.
To knock people out. Yeah.
Just to knock people out. And I could see Ratatosk almost like trying to drain that energy from Nidhogg just to stir shit.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that is...
You should read some of the comics with Ratatosker, and I think you would really like how they portray her. In Marvel Comics, they are a minor chaos god.
Marvel,
like they're like Loki's son or something, but they're portrayed as like a minor god of chaos.
Okay.
And so they're always doing like trickish stuff. They're always talking crap, right? But they still serve their primary purpose, right? Like, even when there's one point where like Thor goes and seeks out Ratatosker because Ragnarok has happened, and he's like, "Hey, I need you to take a message to everyone in Asgard." And Ratatasker's like, "No, thanks."
Yeah, nah.
And he's like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Well, there's just no one up there to receive the message. Well, why would I go up there?" Like,
ouch.
I'm like, dang. Like,
that's cold, bro.
They portrayed very well. Yeah, it was wild.
Okay.
So I think if you look up some of the comics with Ratatasker, I mean, you're trying to come up with like a personality specifically for that deity. I really like the way Marvel portrayed the mischievous side. It was very Loki-esque, but also, it still had its purpose, right, to go up and down the tree, but it wants to cause mischief because it doesn't have anything else to do.
Yeah, exactly. Which I've seen firsthand of like people in my line of work. A lot of the times people go, well, why are they acting like that? Why are they lashing out? And I'm like, it's what they can control. Like there's stuff going on around them that they have zero control of and they know it. So it's just like human nature to try to control what they can. And a vast majority of it is how they interact with people and how people interact with them, regardless of the situation. So, I mean, sadly, they lash out.
Narcissist fuel.
Yeah. So yeah, like in a situation to where, I know that ultimately I have no choice. I am going to control what I do have a choice over. And sometimes it's being a jerk.
But for anyone that's listening, have you ever played like a cleric or a paladin or known anyone that has that's followed a god that just doesn't care or is just there to make you a lamb for the sacrifice?
That is interesting because it is kind of such a foreign like idea, because why would we do that? But so if it has ever happened, I'd be really interested to know your story. Yeah.
Tell us about your experience in the comments.
Yeah.
We've already been talking about the previous couple of like episodes of this series, and I just want to talk about like the campaign variations and storytelling opportunities, which we've been mentioning, especially in the last episode, of like campaigns where the gods are silent or absent, or they have maybe motivations that don't work for the cleric or the paladin or the divine class that you're playing. In example, Dark Sun or Forgotten Realms of Fallen Deities or Eberron. I do believe you're a little bit more versed on Eberron.
It's been a while,
but there are fallen gods in that system, aren't there?
They have, yes, I believe so. They're not part of the main ones, but they are. I believe they're from the psionic side of it. I believe they're from the Kalishtar people. If I'm getting this wrong, people in the comments, please correct me, because I love Eberron, and I'm sorry if I'm getting this wrong. But yeah, they do have like fallen gods, But with the Eberron setting, the 9 and 7, or is it the 7? Whatever. Man, God, I need to go do this again, because I do love the setting. I don't remember the gods too much, but I do know that they have like a collection of good ones and a collection of bad ones, and even like everyone knows they exist, and they'll even pray to them just to try to stay on their good side and just stay out of their way. But they do have fallen gods, and I do believe that there's a sect of the Kalishtar that are trying to bring them back through like psionic means. So, and I hate it that psionics has kind of faded out from D&D, because it is such an interesting like magic setting.
It was originally like introduced back in 1E when they started bringing in like the mind flayers.
Yes.
I think that the mind flayers actually became before beholders, if I do remember right. If not, correct me in the comments down below. And then you had Tim Kask and talking to Gary Gygax, because they were into Doctor Strange, of like, you need magic in a way, creating these adverse things from this Far Realm area before it was called the Far Realm. Basically, he imagined a storyline reason of like magic is literally creating like antibodies to fight against the aberrations, and in our setting, that's the druids. That's nature magic.
Yeah, it's nature magic fighting back. Yeah.
They're the antibodies in our particular setting.
Which is why Tove, whenever she's around something aberrant, she feels weird, and like, because she's playing Tabaxi, like her tail fluffs out, and
she gets physically ill.
Yeah, she has a physical reaction to it. Yeah.
I wouldn't. I've thought about it. And if she's listening to this, sorry. But I've literally thought of like, if you guys survive the Overseer, which I've seen his stat block and he's scary as hell. He is scary as hell. Does she survive? Does she like just has hives like all over her fur?
So yeah, I am generally scared of the Overseer because I know what it takes to kill Merrick because it's happened a couple of times, and I know this guy is so much worse. So I am concerned.
I think you and me, Chase, talked about it like earlier. About like if there's an absent God or if there's somebody that's silent, then obviously faith almost has to be a moral construct rather than a divine will, because it's your own particular like kind of ethos, I guess.
You wouldn't be running around seeing your God doing miracles, right? Your God would be silent. You would never see them.
Or is it like Christian beliefs where something good happens and you're like, you equate that of, oh, that's so-and-so's, that's a miracle from so-and-so.
Absolutely, yeah. And, maybe suddenly you just start worshiping that God because maybe that was the holy symbol that was around when something great happened. You thought that maybe that was divine intervention of some sort. There's a lot of ways to do that. And, you could be a follower without the God ever even acknowledging your existence. I mean, not to get theological, but I feel like that happens a lot in real life.
It does. And it's a reoccurring theme, and like it's a reoccurring theme in the TV series Evil that just recently ending.
Good show.
And one of the priests he's been a priest. He's like in his 70s, and he's like in quotations on the edge of retirement, even though you don't really retire.
Yeah, you don't really stop until you're
dead. And
he
asks like I think he asked one of the other priests or one of the nuns, he goes, have you ever felt him or interacted with him or anything like that kind of thing? And they, oh yeah, yes. And then they give their example. He goes, yeah, I never have. And he's been a priest for 30
some odd, yeah,
30, 40 years.
Most of his life, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And he's never had that experience. He just believes because he's seen other people.
Yeah.
And you could have that happen all over the place, right?
And this is kind of one of the things that I've been wrestling with like most of my adult life, and I've been talking to people about it, is my own personal like views on religion, to where I've seen stuff or the stuff that's happened to me that have been like close calls on the highway that I'm like, okay, that could have been real bad. If I would have been like a split second shorter or whatever, I could have been seriously hurt or died. And sometimes I've caught myself looking up and saying, thanks for having my back, and moving on. Other times that it's happened, I just be like, well, that was close. And then I move on, it's, so It's kind of weird that like sometimes I do think like that, and then sometimes I don't.
I do notice our brain works in a particular way of like, and this is a bad comparison, but like, let's say you're like, we'll say, for instance, I drive a blue Nissan.
Yeah.
Of a particular brand or a particular make and model. I never noticed that make or model and how common it was till I had that.
Until you have one. Yep.
And then when that sort of like in comparison, that thing happens, like that kind of, in quotations, maybe miracle or something, when you're know of it, or maybe you're looking for it, then you notice it a lot more. So is it like mental confirmation bias?
Yeah. Is it a confirmation bias?
This is getting a little more real world than it is D&D, but it can translate as well.
Yeah, a lot of the themes that we deal with on a daily basis end up in our game, whether we want them to or not. It's just because it's how our brains are wired. So no, I think it's an apt thing, because I've noticed that when I bought my truck, it's a Toyota. Okay, cool. It's one of the most common brands like in America, but I haven't noticed a Toyota truck as much as I have after I bought mine.
Yes.
And now it's like they're freaking everywhere. I'm like, where did everyone all just buy the same truck on the same day like I did?
So
maybe, no, I get it.
So would a cleric or somebody of faith in like D&D that's never had a direct hand with a god, if they have that mental confirmation bias of like, yes, I see miracles every day, they just don't happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is that their like kind of, in quotation, story fuel to keep them faithful? On top of, if you're a cleric or whatever in D&D, you feel that literal divine energy in you, unless you're not like a cleric and just a person of faith.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of those things of like, okay, with that priest where I've never felt that. Well, but you had to feel something. Otherwise, you wouldn't have done it for 40 some odd years. So it could have just been the answer of, yeah, you never felt that because you never needed to. Like you didn't need to have the big, aha moment because, yeah, maybe you just didn't.
And that could have been, that end story of like, he goes to, we'll say he's a priest of Damanjarl.
Yeah, whoever.
Since that's a main god in our thing. And he's like, why didn't you ever appear to me in my life? He's like, I didn't need to.
Yeah.
Your faith was unwavering.
Yeah.
I never once questioned you.
Yeah, you've had it on lock since the day one. So yeah, I've never needed to. And maybe that's a good answer to some people. Maybe it's not. But when we're dealing with some things that can be as personal as deities and faith, we're not going to go down that particular rabbit hole. But yeah, that could be a thing of where it's like maybe your God is silent because you don't need your God to be vocal. Yeah. Maybe you got this.
That's a couple of the ways you guys can role play it, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
In this particular situation, unfortunately, you do have to draw like real world comparisons because writers or storytellers draw from what they know, and that is my justification for this. It is not to insult anyone of any.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, or if you want to get really like crazy with it, you could have your gods be like anime gods where they're literally calling you on the phone and screaming at you because you're being an idiot. So, and oh, hey, by the way, you didn't give me my offerings last week, so I want a double offering this week, and make sure you include the nut-covered honey buns, not the regular honey buns, type of a thing.
I think more than once King Kai would yell mentally at Goku.
Oh, he did all the time. All the time, yeah.
And he was a being of the afterlife.
Yeah, exactly. And he was one of the minor Kais. Yeah. Which again is just an evidence of power scaling in the DBZ universe because Goku kept being more powerful than whatever god he was dealing with at that point in time, so they have a more powerful god for him to fight.
He still hasn't passed Beerus yet. That's all that matters.
Still hasn't passed Beerus yet. Yep, exactly.
They're the gods that get shown in all these different shows are always very interesting, and we take a lot of inspiration from them in a lot of the works that we do in D&D, so it's a lot of fun.
Hey, tabletop gamers. Thank you for watching this episode of the Hermit's Homebrew. We come out with new episodes every Wednesday. Remember to like, subscribe, and share with your friends as we continue to level up and grow.